too long. And while Sandy, who you're going to hear from in just a moment, and thousands of our brothers and sisters out on the streets have been suffering living outside, we're trying to build apartment buildings that take 4 or 5 years to build at an average cost of about $700,000 an apartment unit. And what we're learning is that with nearly 10,000 homeless residents in this county, that $700,000 a unit becomes a $7 billion challenge. And we have been, with the county of Santa Clara, trying to push mightily this rock up a $7 billion hill for more than a decade and a half. And I think when Assemblymember Ash Kalra and I were back on the city council as council members back in 2008, I introduced a measure, and he was strongly supporting to make San Jose the largest city in the country with a citywide inclusionary housing policy. And after a half decade of battling in the courts, the Supreme Court, we finally got that implemented. And the county stepped up, and I think Supervisor Mike Wasserman may be joining us shortly. And we're grateful that they stepped up in a big way in 2016 with a $1 billion bond measure. And in March, city voters approved here in the city of San Jose another more than $1 billion over the next 20 years through Measure E. And just last month, as Councilmember Dev Davis, who is here, she pushed hard with the rest of us to cast a deciding vote to approve a citywide commercial impact fee for affordable housing. So we've been trying a lot of different ways to find the dollars, but the reality is we know all these dollars and all these efforts won't be enough. And we've got to do something as we're pushing this rock up a $7 billion hill to either get a smaller rock or flatten the hill. And so we're trying to think differently about this challenge. And these 3 projects offer us an alternative. And we're going to need a lot of alternatives. We're going to need a lot of tools in this toolbox to combat homelessness. And so we are constructing these 3 developments, serving more than 300 residents, not in 4 or 5 years, but in 4 or 5 months. And they're costing not $700,000 per apartment, but about $85,000 per apartment unit. And we're doing this because of the leadership of Governor Gavin Newsom and his team and the legislature in the state of California. I'm proud to have Assemblymember Ash Kalra here. And we are creating this desperately needed alternative to expand the many tools we'll need in our toolkit to build a California for all. So together we've done so with 3 basic ingredients: hustle, teamwork, and leadership. I want to tell you briefly about the hustle because there's a lot of folks here who are involved in that hustle. As the pandemic set in, we had both a challenge and an opportunity. The challenge was to comply with statewide health orders that we had to thin out our shelters and thin out the encampments because we knew that homeless people would be particularly vulnerable in this pandemic. The opportunity was that because of Governor Newsom's leadership, we had a way to clear a lot of red tape and to move more quickly. And with some help from state dollars, we could actually get something done and move more nimbly. So I recall calling Jim Ortball, who's our deputy city manager, who I pleaded with, hey, Jim, can we do it differently this time? Let's find another way. If we can get some of the red tape out of the way, can you guys move fast enough? And he and city manager Dave Sykes said, absolutely, no question about it. And he did what all great leaders do. He assembled an amazing team, and they went right to it. And Jim, sadly, is retiring from the city in a couple months after 31 years of service, but I think this is one of his many capstones that he can look at with great pride. But the team that he assembled, I know Jackie Morales-Ferrand, our housing director, and Reagan Henniger, our deputy housing director, have been pushing like crazy here in this city, and they took on this challenge immediately. James Stagey, who's really been deeply involved in these 3 projects and managing the effort from the housing side. Great partnership with our public works team led by Matt Cano, and I just want to briefly describe project manager here is Brian Lee. Katie Martin was a project manager in Evans Lane, and Chris Master de Casa is a project manager at Rue Ferrari. These 3 projects all pushed through with the great work of our public works team, as well as Rodney Rabson, Mike O'Connell, Paul Garcia. And I really want to give a big shout out to Mackenzie Mossing and Nathan Ho on my team, who have been amazing champions, pushing and nudging every possible way to get these projects to move forward. Everyone hustled hard. So there was a lot of hustle, certainly at the city of San Jose, but we were able to hustle because we had great partners And the teamwork came from a lot of different sources. I see here John Ball and Mike Block. Now, these two guys just volunteered their time with us for several weeks, several months, I should say, on weekly calls. And they were looking at all kinds of different housing types and looked at sites. John is a retired executive at Hensel Phelps who somehow or another keeps getting sucked into these city projects. No matter how much he tries to get away from us, he somehow volunteers. Mike Block is still running the show over at Block Construction. It was just great having private sector helping us understand how we could do this cost effectively and at the speed we needed to. Thank you, gentlemen, for stepping up. We of course, had amazing partners managing this effort at Home First. I really want to thank Andrea Urton and Renee Ramirez. I think I saw Andrea a minute ago. Where'd she go? There's Andrea. Thank you so much. Your team is on site, managing incredibly well here and at, I believe, Rue Ferrari. We're grateful for all that Home First has been doing in our community for decades because we know management makes the project work. And of course, running the construction is a whole nother battle. And we had amazing leadership from our partners at Habitat for Humanity, who also have led the construction. Yeah, let's clap for them. Who also led the construction of our tiny homes. And so, you know, it's really because of Janice Jensen's leadership that they've really expanded their mission. They're not just about getting a bunch of amateurs like me out with a hammer, although they'll do that on occasion. They're actually managing professional projects like this and helping us really scale our efforts in the battle against homelessness. And I'm just so grateful to Andrea and to Renee Ramirez. I'm sorry, forgive me, Kevin Elliott, the Director of Development, who I know is also here. I just ran into Kevin. Thank you very much, Kevin, for all that you do. And they have been amazing, so thank you very much. And of course, we have other management partners on another site, and we'll hear more about that in a few weeks, Path and Abode, who have been longstanding partners with us here at the city. So I mentioned it took teamwork, it took hustle, finally it took leadership. I just need to acknowledge local leadership here that made this happen. We have 3 different sites in 2 different council districts. One of those council districts is represented by Dev Davis. And I have been with Dev Davis when she has been in front of 300 very angry community members. They yell because they love, I know. And she has stood up repeatedly and said, we're going to do this because this is the right thing to do. And that is not easy. And I'm not sure if you brought Charlotte and Dominic, did you? Oh, okay, so yeah, Charlotte, where'd they go? Oh, there they are, they're in the back hiding. Okay, well, I know your mom always tells me how proud she is of you. You should be proud of her, too. She's doing great work. And I also want to really thank Councilmember Sergio Jimenez, who I believe is represented by Vanessa Sandoval. Hey, Vanessa, thank you. And has been working really hard here with the surrounding neighborhoods to ensure we have a good neighbor relationship between neighborhoods and our residents here. I really appreciate all they've done to step up. Finally, in leadership, we're going to talk about the governor in a second, but I got to give big kudos to Assemblymember Ash Kalra, who's been an enormous champion for affordable housing in our region and now statewide for many years. He was particularly instrumental here because he authored a bill in 2019, AB 1745. Don't worry, there'll be a test on this tomorrow. They extended the sunset on a bill that we really benefited enormously that was passed back in 2016 that helps us get around some of the red tape on the building codes. All these units are safe. It just so happens we're able to do this a lot more cost effectively because of the help that Assemblymember Kalra gave it to us. And I want to thank him for all his leadership and invite him to the podium. Thank you, Assemblymember.
Thank you so much, Mr. Mayor, for your leadership, for that very kind introduction. I'm incredibly excited to be here. I've lived in this part of San Jose, in this community, for 42 years. And so it's so meaningful and personal to me that we could provide shelter, provide a warm place, a loving place for so many of our unhoused brothers and sisters. And while this pandemic has only exacerbated economic challenges faced by so many Californians, homelessness has been a persistent problem across our state that we're still trying to fix, pre-pandemic and certainly now during the pandemic. And that's why last year As the mayor referenced, I authored Assembly Bill 1745 with support and partnership from the mayor and city of San Jose to extend the timeline for the city of San Jose to build life-saving, which it is, life-saving emergency housing for those in need. And we're all grateful that AB 1745 was signed into law by Governor Newsom and with the work of his team, with his continued commitment to house everyone in the state of California. And we obviously had a lot of help, as mentioned by the mayor, from Habitat for Humanity, East Bay, Silicon Valley, who've been able to provide these 78 units of emergency housing to vulnerable residents, especially those impacted by the pandemic. And not too far, the Rue Ferrari site, also in my district here in South San Jose, over 100 more units will be coming online very, very soon. So San Jose is showing that we can do it, that it is possible to take on one of the biggest crises of our lifetime. And what we see here today was made possible through the governor's leadership and through the shared vision of a better, more secure, and compassionate future for unhoused Californians. And so I proudly stand here with Governor Newsom, Mayor Liccardo, and so many of the partners that I think the mayor almost introduced everyone here, so I'll do a ditto for that. As we celebrate today's progress, we also reaffirm our commitment to continuing the work towards eradicating homelessness and ensuring safe shelter for the most vulnerable members of our communities. And in the midst of this crisis, we are taking the opportunity to forge ahead to fund projects throughout our state and certainly here in this city. And it's been made possible because of joined leadership, which we see demonstrated today because of everyone here, to seize upon the opportunity, which I'm so grateful for. Together, we must continue to build upon this foundation and ensure our unhoused neighbors are not left behind, that they are embraced and given the dignity that they deserve, and that our actions represent the moral principle that housing is a human right. And so again, Governor, I cannot thank you enough for your commitment to end homelessness in our great state. And Mayor Liccardo, Councilmember Davis, Councilor Jimenez, and the rest of the city leadership, thank you for your leadership. Thank you. When I'm in Sacramento talking the game, you're actually walking the walk here, and that makes me so, so proud. So thank you, Mayor Liccardo.
Thank you. Thank you, Assemblymember. Now, it's really a tremendous honor of mine to introduce Sandy. Sandy is here with her friend Bubbles. And Sandy is going to offer a bit of her lived experience for our benefit and to remind us why we do this work. Sandy has served children as a teacher for many years. And she has demonstrated courageous resilience throughout her life. She is a survivor of addiction. She is a survivor of sexual assault. She has continued to be able to forge ahead in ways I think many of us probably can't comprehend. She was last living in a place where they wouldn't allow dogs. And so we're thrilled that we could provide a home for Sandy and for Bubbles. We got a dog run here, by the way. And now her son and her granddaughter can visit her every week here. Thank you, Sandy, for joining us, and thank you for courageously sharing your story.
Good afternoon, everyone. This is a little hard, but for me to do. I've been homeless for 6 years, and I've been advocating for myself for apartments. Those 6 years, I have applications all over. I was at one place that it was an independent place where you pay, and I got raped and sodomized for 2 days without stop. I finally got out, was able to get out of his way and just run. And I've had a lot of bad experience at shelters. And when they told me about this when I was at the motel, when I left with the dog, and they didn't want the dog, I packed up and left. That was at Life Moves. because she wanted him out and I couldn't get him back. I couldn't get her back because she was a puppy after she had signed all the papers and blah, 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 okay? She gave me 2 hours to give her Bubbles so she could take it to Milpitas shelter. And I told her no. If she leaves, I leave. So I've been paying motels back and forth. Little bit of earnings I had, gone. Until they called me. I made a lot of calls, and they came from the county. And one of them was Debbie, and she told me she was going to move me to the little houses, tiny houses. And I said, oh, no, because I've seen that on my phone. That looks like a little hole. It looks like a jail. I've never been to jail, but that looks like a jail, you know? And when I came here, I was so amazed, not only of the place, but the people here. The people here are fantastic, from the guards all the way to the staff and the caseworkers. I have a marvelous caseworker that he knows me since before, which is Quentin. Are you around? Okay. They accepted my dog here. She has all the papers and everything. I feel like I'm home. Okay, I feel like I'm home. And I want to thank you, the governor, the mayor, the city, the county, for doing a project like this for us. Because this has been the greatest thing that had ever happened to me in all those years. I appreciate that the governor and the mayor had the heart to know what homeless go through, and this was made up for us. And I really appreciate it with all my heart, because I feel safe here. I feel safe here. I have been molested in at two places, shelters, and my heart goes out for you guys, because you guys are doing a great job, a fantastic job. That we were being treated like people, okay? Not a statistic, but like real people. And I have to thank everyone here. The only thing, we need a bus stop. Okay. We need a bus stop. That's the only thing. But otherwise, everything's well here. Everything's well here. The whole staff, everyone. I have no complaints whatsoever. And I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart.
Sandy, thank you.
You're welcome.
Sandy, thank you. Thank you for sharing your account. And you can be sure Mackenzie was taking notes back here about the bus stop. So I want to finally introduce our another very important honored guest. That is Governor Gavin Newsom. I'm with a group of 13 mayors throughout the state who occasionally nudge and needle the governor about whatever we might happen to want. And about 90% of the time, it has to do with homelessness. And we've had several conversations. And as a former mayor, I think the governor clearly gets it. He has always accepted our desire to meet, and he has always engaged us honestly and forthrightly. And I should also say he's ably served by Jason Elliott, who leads his homelessness efforts. And I knew I liked Jason the minute he told me that he grew up here in the Bay Area, and he was a fan of what we call affectionately the Greater Giants, the San Jose Giants. Yes. So we knew we'd hit it off, and Jason's done amazing work in leading several initiatives. So we've been in constant conversation with the governor and his team and Jason. And over the last year, what we have seen coming from the governor's office has been transformative and was directly responsible for what you see today. It was the governor creating the Homeless Housing and Assistance Program, or HAP, that enabled us to be able to have $17 million that we could use to build these 3 projects. That was essential. It was his executive order that made Caltrans land available that we're using for one of these 3 projects, and we'll be using for others as well. It was his executive order granting CEQA waivers that helped get a lot of red tape out of the way so we could move quickly and get this built in 4 or 5 months rather than 4 or 5 years. In every step, the governor has been an amazing partner and leader. He walks the walk, and I am so grateful that he is our governor. Governor Gavin Newsom.
I appreciate it. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Well, thank you all very much for the privilege and opportunity to come down here and brag on Sam and his team and the City Council and others that made this project possible. To thank Jim for his leadership and all of you for being out here and being part of this remarkable moment, which is a moment that proves a paradigm that we can solve this issue. Those that are cynical, those that are filled with doubt, I would encourage them just to consider what Mayor Liccardo has done in just 4 months. The idea that in 4 months we could take pen to paper, we can organize a construct statewide, local, using federal money, building out capacity with local public partnerships, be it private sector partners or nonprofits like Habitat for Humanity, Home First, and others, to get volunteers, to get everybody together. And within just 120 days, to create opportunities, 307 units in just 120 or so days, to help people like Sandy and to help hundreds of others that are struggling episodically, struggling more chronically with the conditions and challenges of homelessness. At the end of the day, this is not about 307 static units for 307 people in perpetuity. This is about creating opportunities for people to transition. And so it's a paradigm that's absolutely true, a paradigm that the mayor advanced, that the solution to the homeless challenge is housing, but it's housing and supportive services. It is the case management. It is the individuals that are committed to helping address some of the underlying reasons why people are out in the streets and the sidewalks, or bouncing around different couches or shelters, or we're out in their cars or in creeks and sidewalks and underpasses throughout this state. Getting under the hood, literally and figuratively, to understand those conditions so we can address those conditions with a mindset of getting people back on their feet, getting them back on their way, back into the journey to be fully expressive in their lives and self-sufficient. And so it's in that spirit that I'm here, of deep gratitude, deep respect for the hustle. A mayor that uses the word hustle, just that alone should elevate Sam, though he is already the president of that damn 13 mayors, so he can't even be, I don't know what more I can say, but I just have deep respect for his leadership, not an abstract concept, a very practical concept and construct. It is demonstrable, that leadership at scale here today. This was nothing more than, sort of a hybrid open space parking lot storage facility, and look at it here today with the faces of those lives that have been improved, and dozens of others that will be moving into these units over the course of the next days and coming weeks. So again, thank you to Mayor Liccardo. Thank you to Councilmember Davis. Thank you, by the way, Councilmember, for stepping up and having the courage of your convictions. Thank you for doing what's right, even if folks are out there saying it's not particularly popular, because at the end of the day, we need more people like you, less people that are willing just to float along and point fingers and say it's someone else's responsibility and that they're somehow not accountable. That's leadership as well. And so I just admire that, and I want you to know we have your back, and whatever you need to be supported as you make the case that we're all in this together, that there's no leak on your side of our boat, that we have a responsibility, a moral responsibility as human beings, as members of this larger community, the Commonwealth, to help other individuals and not say that's for someone else on the other side of the tracks or the road or in a different county, for that matter, a different part of the state. I just admire that. And I don't see a lot of that. Not everybody does that. A lot of folks find excuses. They don't show up because it's hard. It's hard work. And, so anyway, I don't want to keep bragging on you, but I want to recognize you because it's what we need. The reason we have a damn crisis is we don't have enough people like Councilmember Davis. We don't have enough mayors like Sam Liccardo. It's the reason we have a crisis of homelessness in this state. Is no one had the guts, the courage to take responsibility and ownership. And for years and years and years, for decades, it festered. And then all of a sudden people said, well, now the place is unlivable. Can't take it anymore. Well, at the end of the day, we can resolve to fix this with that hustle, that grit, with that determination, with that leadership, and with intentionality. And I just want to express gratitude as well to Assemblymember Carla for his intentionality, for recognizing it's one thing to have an idea. It's another even have money to support the idea. It's another to have the resources, human and otherwise, to get it done. But sometimes you need to streamline your regulatory process in order to drive to goal and get something done on time and under budget. And so I want to just thank you for recognizing that, working with your colleagues. There's a lot of colleagues up in Sacramento, a lot of folks. Not easy on these issues, and to drive and streamline, as you did with the CEQA legislation this year, where we were able now to drive a lot of projects for the second reason I'm here, and that is to announce an additional $200 million that we are contributing in this state through our Homekey partnership, which is not insignificant. And what I think makes all of us so enthusiastic about that is, again, the hustle that's behind this program. We started just in April. Just think about this. 6 months ago, we started a project called Project Homekey in the state of California. 22,203 individuals. 22,203 individuals have been served by Project Homekey just in 6 months. In July, because of Ash's leadership and his colleagues, we started a new program called Homekey. We were able to work together, identify $600 million, despite a $54.3 billion budget surplus, deficit. $54 billion deficit. We found $600 million, and we said we got to spend this money in the next 6 months. And we got to spend it wisely, thoughtfully, and we want bang for the buck, not the $700,000 units that the mayor was just talking about. We want projects like this. We want innovation. We want tiny homes. We want innovation in terms of modular. We want prefab. We want new strategies, new designs, new opportunities to get something done in real time. Remarkably, $709 million now has already been distributed, $81.4 million that we're announcing today, 6 new projects in the $81.4 million, including here in Santa Clara County, up in Oakland, down in San Bernardino County, and in LA County. $200 million will provide us now $800 million total for this effort. 78 jurisdictions currently have projects under contract, under construction, or completed in 45 jurisdictions in this state. All of that since July. We can do this. This is possible. So, again, I just want folks to know this was, and I think, Ash, you were kind of alluding to this was our pre-existing condition before the pandemic of COVID-19 and the pandemic-induced recession. This was our pre-existing crisis. Affordability, broadly defined, the ultimate manifestation of that, homelessness as it relates to the housing crisis, lack of opportunities, lack of access. And so we are not walking away from our commitment, not taking our eye off the ball at all. And we are weathering the current economic storm. And we're doing more than we've ever done in the history of this state. And we are just winding up. I want folks to know that. We see what's happened to this state as it relates to the issue of homelessness. We recognize our responsibility to do more. And we are building capacity and partnerships that never existed 2 or 3 years ago. And I want folks to know that we're not going to walk away from this. And we have people now doing things in a way that they've never done before. And we're producing results in the way we haven't seen before either. So I could continue, but I will end on that. A spirit, again, of gratitude and optimism on a tough issue, but one where our hearts always get filled when we talk in the terms that Sandy talked, and that's human terms. Because this is about real people, real lives. Everybody's expression's unique. Everybody sees the world with their own unique set of eyes and experiences. And that's why our approach has to be individualized, and our approach has to be organized with a discipline and with a sensibility that is self-evident here at this remarkable project that I'm proud to be here with all of you, announcing, or rather, revealing in this virtual ribbon cutting, because I don't see any damn ribbon to cut. Happy to take any questions.
Hi, Governor. Thanks for taking questions. My name is Marisa Kendall. I'm a reporter with the Mercury News. I'll be asking the pool questions today. So to start out with, Project Homekey, it turned more than 16,000 hotel rooms into temporary homeless housing, but many of those are shutting down now. Project Homekey has funded so far about 4,600 new units. A lot of those won't be ready for another couple months. Does the state know how many Homekey residents have left the hotels so far and where they've gone? And do you really think that all of those residents leaving those hotels will be able to be sheltered elsewhere?
We're not naive. I mean, we did something unprecedented, historic. No other state in the nation came close to doing, and that's getting 22,203 people supports in those 16,000 or so units that we were able to procure just since April. None of us suggested that we could match that in terms of permanency, but we are committed to each and every individual, and we're working with every single county, every jurisdiction that's in partnership with Project Homekey to identify the answer to your question individual by individual. But here's the good news. Homekey is just one component of a strategy of permanency. We have all of these other strategies that are running in parallel. The HEAP program, the HAP program, other programs that predate even my tenure here as governor. We are committed to continuing down a path of supports for those additional supports, and then all the local efforts that are already underway. We're also working with Health and Human Services and working with county health officers to identify those individuals and provide additional areas of support so we could provide well in excess opportunities for 22,000+. We recognize we have over 100,000 people that we have to provide support to. So this is just one of many efforts, but this one is foundational, and again, simply without precedent in our nation's history. There's no other program like this in the nation. There's been no other effort in the history of this state to identify permanent opportunities, transition and permanent housing, and to do so within literally weeks and months, not years and decades.
Thank you. Speaking of Project Homekey, one of those grants went to Santa Clara County to turn a hotel in Milpitas into homeless housing.
Yep.
But Milpitas City Council is trying to block the project. They voted last night to sue any and all parties involved. What do you have to say to the Milpitas City Council, and would you consider rescinding that grant and giving that money to another project?
I hope they do the right thing. Why do you think I was bragging on Bev so much? I mean, Dev's just been doing the right thing. She gets it. She had the courage. She stood up, and she said it's the right thing to do. Sometimes you have to do the right thing. And 132 permanent studio units with supportive services and on-site supports that include security and integration of the broader community. What an extraordinary opportunity. I don't want to see them walk away from that. Why would anyone want to see them walk away from that? That opportunity may never come back. And of course, meanwhile, I know exactly what the mayor is going to think, what I would be saying if I were him too. Of course he'd be happy to take the money. But I don't want to see that happen. It was the city manager was making a case for this project a few months ago. I think the vice mayor said it was a great project. I kind of liked them then. The planning commissioner was saying the same thing. Look, guys, I'll have your back. I get the pressure you're under. I was a local government official too. I get the pressure you're under. But you're going to look back in your life, and you're going to regret this. You're going to look back in your life and said, I could have, would have, should have done the right thing to turn other human beings' lives around. You have an incredible moment in time. It's a moral damn moment. Do the right thing. stand tall. When you look your kids in the eyes, say you did the right thing. You helped quite literally hundreds and hundreds of people, like Sandy. That's nobility. Why the hell you need the job? Do the job. You can do the right thing. It's the right thing to do. This is a historic opportunity. Don't miss it. It will not come back. Likely will never come back. In the midst of a recession, to get real people off the streets, hundreds and hundreds of people over the course of your term in office that you can point to that say, I helped make this happen. What an extraordinary gift. Don't pass that up. That's what I would say to them. Please reconsider.
Thank you. Experts predict that the COVID economic fallout will push many more people into homelessness. One estimate says our population could increase by nearly 20%. Do you think that will happen? And if it does, our efforts in place right now already obviously fall short. How will you address this crisis that potentially may become much worse?
That's why we're here. We're celebrating success. We're highlighting leaders. We're making a case that we need to do a lot more. None of us are naive. I've owned up to the fact that the state of California has been nowhere to be found on the issue of homelessness for decades. The state of California has had no homeless strategy, no homeless plan. It's not been intentional. It's not been supportive. I don't think this. I know this. I was a former county mayor. They were nowhere to be found on these issues. We're trying to change that. Mayors like Sam Liccardo are demanding that, and they're right to demand that. And I'm not walking away from this. We're just getting started. We're not over-promising here. I'm not naive about the magnitude of the challenge that pre-existed this crisis, and nor am I naive about the magnitude of the challenge that is in front of us as it relates to a recession and the stubbornness of a Recovery Act that needs the support of folks in the Senate and the need to extend beyond February, perhaps, some protections for people that may be on the verge of evictions and the crisis that may ensue if we're not doing more and better. I'm working on a budget into the new year, and we are committed to doing more and recognizing the enormity of the task in front of us.
Thank you. Early in the pandemic, your office also sent trailers around the state to house homeless residents as part of your response, including 100 to San Jose. But the San Jose trailers were in such bad shape that the city spent more than $1 million and 2 months renovating them before giving up and scrapping the program entirely. Why did your office send San Jose broken trailers, and why didn't you do more to help San Jose make the trailer program a success?
Well, we've done a lot. I can talk to the mayor, can talk about that more specifically. But we're over 1,200 trailers all throughout the state of California. The vast majority were brand new. We tried to do our best under emergency circumstances to provide trailers in whatever condition based upon the emergency that was in front of us at the moment in the midst of this pandemic early on. But it was just a small part of our larger and overall strategy. And I'm just very grateful that the mayor took it upon himself to take responsibility to try to address what was delivered, to address the concern, to address the issues. And you know what? He didn't call and complain about things. He said, I'm going to try to fix this thing. I'm going to try to deal with this thing. And I admire that, and that's the spirit that I hope we can see throughout the state. But I want to turn it over to the mayor to talk more about those specific trailers.
Yeah, just thank you, Governor. I think we all recognize this was a pandemic. This is a pandemic. And the state, the city, the county, everybody was hustling as hard as they could to find solutions to get people off the street. And we were happy that the state was willing to offer some help. I don't think any of us knew what the challenges were with those specific trailers until we got into it, and I certainly don't blame them because they were moving as fast as they could, and we were moving as fast as we could. And the important thing in emergency is that you just don't have time to overstudy, to overanalyze. You got to get things done. I appreciate that the state took the risk. That's what innovation is about. And what we know here in Silicon Valley is when we innovate and we take risks, sometimes it doesn't work. But that doesn't mean we're not going to take the next risk if it makes sense. And what we've seen from the state, programs like HAP, that are clearly showing results right here, and programs like Homekey, Council just approved on Tuesday, getting 76 units open because of that innovative program that the governor launched. Look, we're going to be partners in this innovation, and not all those innovations are going to work. And I think we need to be patient because we've got a crisis that's far too big, and we're going to keep needing more innovation.
Thank you.
Thanks. And by the way, for what it's worth, we've got a huge back order for more trailers all up and down the state of California as they're being utilized up and down the state. In Southern California in particular, where literally hundreds and hundreds of these trailers are in parks like not dissimilar to this and have been very, very successful.
Okay, thank you. I want to ask about the homeless point-in-time count that's set to happen this January. There are concerns that COVID will make it harder to conduct this count. How will you ensure that we get an accurate count, and how will you judge the success of your anti-homelessness initiatives if we don't have that reliable information?
I've always questioned the reliability of that count, even in the best of times. I've been on those counts on dozens of occasions. Personally, myself was down in San Diego doing counts 4 in the morning with the pro tem of the California Senate, Tony Atkins, who, by the way, is someone I also want to recognize for incredible leadership in helping advance Project Homekey in this state. And the question always is, how many people show up to volunteer? More people show up volunteer. Often, more people are counted. Some folks out there were protesting the count. Others were trying to make a case that the folks didn't need to show up that early in the morning because there may have been other reasons they wanted to. Well, there's a lot of manipulation in the count. That said, it is one mechanism. It's an important one for HUD, Housing and Urban Development, because it's a requirement as it relates to federal funds. But for me, it's not the exclusive tool of analyzing or measuring success or efficacy of our homeless programs in the state. Your specific question, though, was about COVID, and that's absolutely going to make this a bigger challenge. And it's an interesting challenge, particularly with the current administration. The likelihood of a new administration providing us supports and perhaps consideration as it relates to how best to approach those annual or every 2 years, the more comprehensive count. We will obviously have a different partnership and a paradigm of engagement that I hope could go to address that issue and with more nuance and specificity.
Okay, thank you. This will be the last question. I want to briefly shift topics to PG&E. With PG&E,
it's always the last question. It's a truism.
I don't want to break tradition.
Yeah. But by the way, I just go on record. I've never done one of these things where I got so many questions on the topic I showed up for. So I'm just so damn grateful to you. So thank you for caring enough about this issue, homelessness. So I'll take PG&E. Let's do it.
That's because they picked a homelessness reporter.
Oh, is that
to do
it?
the
All
pool
right. I was
reporting
going to say,
today,
who is she? She's good. Yeah, sorry. Forgive me.
So with PG&E under a homicide investigation suspected of causing last month's Zog fire and killing 4 people in Shasta County, why should PG&E be allowed to continue making life and death decisions about when and where to shut off the power? And what would it take for you to start the state takeover of PG&E authorized by SB 350?
Well, look, we did a number of things to get PG&E out of bankruptcy. I can go and regale you on all the details and requirements and accountability, including wholesale change of their board of directors and their leadership. But also we inserted our own oversight into PG&E's operation. We have a safety committee. We have a number of other committees that we've established with the PUC, within PG&E, and with kind of oversight the state has never had in the past, including new protocols on PSPS that were established by the California Public Utility Commission last year. And so we're monitoring those new protocols, not only with consultants, but with the new oversight that we have pursuant to 1054, the legislation that we passed last year to get them out of bankruptcy, that allow us to be more targeted in the PSPS process and to reduce the time to the re-energization after the de-energization. I am worried going into Sunday night, into Monday, of a large-scale PSPS in Northern California with these Diablo winds coming in that are anticipated to be quite significant along the lines of what we experienced last year in 2019 that led to the Kincaid fire. And we are working with the National Weather Service, working with the Office of Emergency Services. We have a larger meeting later this afternoon with representatives from PG&E and federal agencies as well as our own state agencies. We put $50 million in the budget, Assembled members support, to help support counties through the PSPS protocols, better outreach, better notification requirements that are in place. And so for all those reasons, it's a different day. That said, PG&E is not where they need to be. It's $5 billion responsibility of commitments for undergrounding and for new strategies on desecularization of their equipment and new strategies on vegetation management. They have substantially improved upon their previous efforts, but they're not even near where we expect they will be in a number of years. Let me conclude by making this point. If they do not perform pursuant to 1054, we have the ability and follow-up legislation, the ability to claw back and to take over the functions of PG&E without having to wait for a bankruptcy determination. And so this state is in a completely different position than it's ever been in the past. But this is the largest private investor-owned utility in the United States of America, and they have a lot of work to do to restore not just your power, but to restore the trust that they have failed to earn over the course of decades, and that is self-evident to anyone living in the Bay Area. And I know no one is a stronger advocate of that point of view in terms of the criticism of PG&E in the past than the person standing behind me in Mayor Sam Liccardo. So I appreciate, again, the questions, and once again, just want to express my gratitude to everybody who made this day possible. And to Sandy, thank you for putting a human face on all their hard work. And all of you, congratulations, and we need 500 more of these. Thank you all very, very much.
Thank you, Governor.